I just finished a lecture, and I'm looking at my notebook. It's page after page of writing. I tried to get everything, and now I don't even know where to start. It feels like a giant wall of text, and none of it makes sense. I feel more confused now than I did before the class started. How is that possible?
Because you were successful at the wrong goal.
What do you mean? My goal was to take good notes. I wrote down almost every word the professor said.
And did that help you understand the ideas?
No, that's the problem. I was so busy writing, I'm not sure I was even listening. It felt like my hand was in the lecture, but my brain wasn't.
Most students believe the purpose of note-taking is to capture information, to create a perfect record of the class.
Yes, exactly. So I don't miss anything when I study for the exam. It's a safety net.
But that belief is a trap. It forces you into the role of a court reporter, just typing what you hear. The real purpose of taking notes is not to capture information. It's to understand it.
But how can I understand it if I don't capture it first? I need the information to be there on the page.
Let's reframe it. What if your notes weren't a record of the past, but a tool for your future self? A tool designed for thinking, not just for reading.
A tool for thinking? I've never thought of it that way. My notes feel like a textbook I wrote badly.
That's a perfect description. And nobody wants to read a badly written textbook, especially one they wrote themselves. The problem isn't your effort, it's the method. You're working hard, but you're building the wrong thing.
So what should I be building?
Let's start with the first step. Most students think their job is to be a collector of facts. They hear a date, a name, a definition, and they write it down. They try to catch everything.
Yes, because everything might be on the test. It feels risky to leave anything out.
That fear is understandable, but it leads to passive listening. You're not thinking, you're just receiving. This is why the notes feel confusing later. Your brain wasn't involved in creating them.
Right. I was just a machine, turning sound into words on a page.
Exactly. The new way to think is this. Your primary job in a lecture is not to collect, but to filter. You are a detective, searching for the most important clues, not a security camera recording everything.
A filter? So I'm supposed to decide what's important during the lecture? That sounds difficult and stressful.
It's simpler than you think. In any lecture, no matter how complex, the speaker is usually only trying to communicate a few core ideas. Your only job is to find and understand those. You need to listen to all the details and examples to distill the main point.
Distill? So you're saying I should ignore the details?
Not ignore them, use them. Use them to understand the main idea, but don't write them all down. For example, if a history professor is talking about a revolution, she might mention 5 different dates, 3 key generals, and 4 specific locations. The collector tries to write all 12 things.
And gets confused and lost, like me.
But the filter listens to all those details and asks, what is the one big idea here? The idea is that food shortages were the main cause of the revolution. That's what you write down. The details just prove the main point.
So I write down, food shortages caused revolution. And that's it? It feels too simple, too short.
It feels simple because it's clear. Your mind has done the work of understanding. Now let's move to the second turning point. Most students write in full sentences.
Well, yes, the professor speaks in sentences. It feels natural to write in sentences.
It feels natural, but it's incredibly inefficient. Sentences hide the core ideas in grammar and extra words. When you review your notes, your brain has to read all those extra words just to find the idea again. It's slow and tiring.
So my notes are full of clutter.
Precisely. The solution is to stop writing sentences and start connecting concepts. You capture ideas as a fragment, not as a prose paragraph.
A fragment? Like not a full sentence?
Exactly. Let's use our history example. The professor says, due to the economic pressures of the Industrial Revolution, large populations migrated from rural areas to urban centers to find employment in the newly established factories.
Okay, I would try to write that whole sentence down, and I'd probably miss the next thing she says.
The student using fragments would write something like this. Industrial Revolution, arrow, people move to cities. Why? Factory jobs. See the difference?
Wow, yes. It's shorter, it's visual, it shows connections. The arrows are doing a lot of work.
They are. You've captured the same idea in 7 words instead of 25. Your brain didn't waste energy on writing. It spent its energy on thinking, on making a connection. Your notes become a map of ideas, not a transcript of words.
A map of ideas. I like that. But what happens when I need to study? This map might be too simple. I might forget what the fragments mean.
This brings us to the third and most important turning point. Most students believe studying means rereading their notes over and over again.
I do that. I highlight them, I read them until my eyes hurt.
And how well does it work for remembering things during an exam?
Not very well. I recognize the words on my page, but I can't explain the idea. It's like the information is locked in the notebook, and I don't have the key.
That's the illusion of knowing. Rereading is passive. It feels like work, but your brain isn't actually doing much. The new way is to treat your notes not as a script to be read, but as a set of clues for a puzzle. The act of studying is trying to solve the puzzle.
What do you mean, solve the puzzle?
You look at your note fragment, factory jobs, and you cover the rest of the page. Then you try to explain the entire concept out loud in your own words. You force your brain to retrieve the information.
Retrieve it? Like pulling it out of my memory instead of just looking at it?
Exactly. The struggle to retrieve is what builds memory. That is the real moment of learning. If you get stuck, you peek at your notes or the textbook. Then you try again and again, until you can explain the whole idea just from that one clue.
So the notes are just triggers. They aren't the knowledge itself. The knowledge is what I build in my head when I try to explain the notes.
You've got it. The value of the notes isn't what's on the page. It's the thinking they force you to do, both in the lecture and when you study.
Okay, this all sounds really good in theory. Filtering ideas, using fragments, retrieving instead of rereading, but it feels slow. What happens when a professor is speaking incredibly fast? My old way of just writing everything down at least felt safe. I was getting it all.
Were you, though? You were getting the words. You weren't getting the meaning. It's better to understand 50% of the lecture deeply than to capture 100% of the words shallowly. A deep understanding of the core ideas allows you to figure out the details later. A shallow recording of all the details leaves you with nothing but noise.
I guess that's true. My pages of notes are just noise. But still, what if I filter for the wrong idea? What if I think something is the main point, but it's not? Good students seem to write a lot. Their notebooks are perfect.
This is a common myth. We see their neat pages but not their confused minds. The goal is not to be perfect on the first try. It's a skill. You'll get better at identifying the main ideas with practice. And a good set of notes is not neat. It's useful. A useful note might be messy, with questions written in the margin, like, why did this happen? Or how does this connect to last week's topic? Those questions are you thinking on the page.
So the system is about changing what I do in 3 places. First, in the lecture, I don't collect, I distill. I find the main idea.
Correct. You become a filter.
Second, when I write, I don't use full sentences. I use fragments and maps to show connections.
You build a structure of ideas, not a wall of text.
And third, when I study, I don't just reread. I use the fragments as clues to retrieve the full idea from my memory.
You actively rebuild the knowledge. Now, let's connect this. Think about what you're creating. You're taking messy, complex information from a lecture and turning it into a simple, organized structure in your notes. Then when you study, you use that structure to rebuild the knowledge in your own mind. You synthesize the ideas.
Synthesize? So I'm not just memorizing facts. I'm taking all these little fragments and building a larger understanding.
Exactly. And the result of that process is that the knowledge in your head becomes clear and logical. It becomes coherent.
And because it's coherent, it's easier to remember during an exam. I won't just be trying to remember random words. I'll be remembering a structure of ideas that I built myself.
Now you see the full picture. The goal was never to have perfect notes. The goal is to have a coherent understanding in your mind. The notes are just the tool you use to build it.
So when I try to distill the main idea in a lecture, I'm starting to build that coherent structure. Then, using a fragment helps me remember that piece of the structure.
Yes, and later when you try to retrieve the information, you are practicing how to think through that structure. You are teaching your brain how to access the information.
It's a completely different way of thinking about it. All my anxiety came from trying to make the notes perfect, trying to capture everything. But the pressure is off. The notes don't have to be perfect. They just have to be useful.
Useful to your future self, who needs to think, not just read. The goal is to create a set of clues that allows you to synthesize the information later. A few powerful fragments are better than 10 pages of passive transcription.
So my notes are a conversation with myself, a way to distill what I'm hearing now so I can retrieve it and make it coherent later. It's an active process from start to finish.
And how does that feel like compared to before?
It feels manageable. It feels like learning is something I do, not something that just happens to me. My notes don't have to be a record of the class. They just have to be a map for my own brain. That's a relief.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining our session today.
We hope this shift in thinking is as helpful for you as it was for me. If there's a study challenge or a confusing topic you're facing, let us know in the comments. We might explore it in a future episode.